Hello all, this is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3, and in this particular video, I want to talk to you about 10 myths about doing your doctorate. So if you don't know me, an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There were so many people that helped me out that I wanted to pay the favor forward and help you out. All right, so these myths are just based on my own personal experience and things that I used to think. And this is just me sort of helping you out in terms of thinking through some of these particular issues. I did a PhD in strategic management and innovation, which is, it was actually a PhD in business administration, but you kind of focus on a particular area. So I focused on strategic management, and that's how you like looking at like CEOs and things like that, and how they manage companies around the world. But enough about that. All right. So what are these myths? So do you need to be a genius to be a PhD? Absolutely not. I think that there is a level of intelligence that most PhDs have, like some sort of decent level of intelligence. But I don't think that's a really strong predictor in terms of how likely that they are going to finish or actually do well in the particular career. I think the biggest predictor, it's like everything else in life, if you didn't know this, it's just grit. It's just focusing on something and being able to delay gratification for a very long time. And if you can do that, and if that's kind of part of your life and part of who you are, then you probably do well in a doctorate. That's just from my personal experience of looking around and seeing people that have been successful. It's just perseverance at the end of the day. It's not really sort of some sort of magical thing in any sort of way. All right, so most PhDs have to go to some private education or go to an elite school. It helps. It's definitely in terms of what in the job market. Once you get done your PhD, if you go to so if you have a private school education, so maybe you went to, I don't know, Vanderbilt or something like that in your undergrad, and then you went to some highfalutin place like Oxford. I'm not poking fun at Oxford, by the way. It's just, it's highfalutin. Anyways, if you went to these schools and then you went to another highfalutin place, I don't know what it would be, Cambridge, whatever, at the end of it. And yeah, it's going to help in terms of getting a job because you have a reputation. That's that there is some sort of status associated with that. It does help in the job market, truly does help in terms of getting into different institutions and things like that. However, in the long run and in terms of what's going to happen to you as an individual, I wouldn't say that in terms of that it's a long-term predictor in terms of success. You see tremendous amounts of variety of people going to different places. And really what you're looking for when you're looking for a place to go to is not necessarily the program, and that's important, right? So you need support and all that kind of stuff. But you also need somebody that you can work with that is, that is building an amazing career. And these people are all around the world at different universities. You didn't know this, right? So people make all sorts of personal choices. So advisors make personal choices in where they want to go. So let's say you like to surf. So they might, set up shop in some place in California or Hawaii or, in Australia or whatever that they like to surf. And, they build a really good sort of lab, or they build a good institution where they have great PhD students that are going into that program. And then, they're developing these PhD students and they go get great jobs. And that happens at every university and every sort of program. You just have to find those particular universities that are doing that. And that's how it's a good thing for you to actually dig these people out before you actually go to the highfalutin places. Now, the highfalutin places, high status kind of institutions, they just have a cluster of more people that are doing that kind of stuff. And they do have, and the reason is they just get more resources. High status institutions will attract bigger donors, all that kind of stuff, people that are going to give a lot more money. And so they get a tremendous amount of resources to do some sort of thing. And so it's attractive to people that are in the job market, especially the ones that are, people that are doing very well for themselves in terms of the academics. And then that attracts the PhD students. So that's the one thing that you want to kind of, trade off, right, in terms of where you want to go and what you're going to do. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you don't go get a private education. People that go to University of Michigan and do their PhD at University of Michigan, my institution, I'm not going to name that one because I don't want to bias you. They end up doing pretty well for themselves. I'm not sort of suggesting one way or the other. They just do pretty well. And, I wouldn't say that's a strong predictor in terms of long-term success. It helps, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the end all and be all. Now, do PhD students get holidays? Yes, technically we all get holidays. Academics tend to get holidays. We're kind of quirky, and most of us actually kind of work through holidays. We do tend to try to take vacations, but most of us try to sort of minimize them. So in terms of you're expecting you're going to get 12 weeks of vacation in the summer and, winter break off and all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't expect that, especially as a PhD student. I remember many, many Christmases, Easters and things like that, where I'd work a little bit for an hour or two in the morning. I know that's terrible. I shouldn't sort of suggest that, and don't do that. That's not what I'm suggesting. It's just, I was bored, and that's really what it is. I mean, you kind of like what you're doing. I might wake up early. I'm bored. Kids are not awake. What am I going to do? I'm just going to pick up a laptop and type away for a little bit until I get awake. Now it's sort of transitioned a little bit now. And that's kind of, I might not do that nearly as much, but, I remember doing lots of that. Or, maybe you are living maybe you're living by yourself and your significant other someplace else, or you're just by yourself and you're just bored. So you pick up a laptop and you actually start typing away or doing some data analysis or something like that. So you end up just kind of doing it just because you're fun, or you find it fun as something to do. It's like reading, right? People pick up a book, they pick up a novel, and they just kind of plunk away at that thing, right? So it's the same thing with people doing a PhD. So it's kind of like, yes, we do get holidays, but most people, I think, kind of just, they do whatever. So I like to take a little bit of time window and not do anything. And that's just to rejuvenate myself, right? So, and that's really important for me. It's not everybody does that. Highly recommend it, but not everybody does that in terms of getting, peace of mind and things like that. All right. Is it harder? Is a PhD harder than a master's? Yes, but it's not for the reasons that you think. So in general, a master's is going to be really challenging than or they're both going to be very challenging in terms of the content and education that you're getting, and you're going to be sore and all that kind of stuff. But the key thing is that during a PhD, well, there's two key things. There's a tremendous amount of ambiguity and uncertainty about whether you're doing the right thing. You're never going to know whether you're doing the right thing, unfortunately, and that's kind of part of it. You kind of get used to it, but that drives a lot of sort of emotional baggage and craziness that happens with it. We all go through it. And then the other thing, it's a marathon, right? So you imagine that a master's is kind of like a 5K or a 10K race, kilometers. And then, a marathon or the PhD is like a marathon, and it's just fundamentally different in terms of the training and what you're going to do with that in terms of the expectation. So what I see a lot of people doing is they go for a sprint at the beginning and then they burn out. And that's not what you want to do, right? You want to kind of have this mindset. I'm just going to keep plunking away at this thing and try to create a life around that particular thing. So imagine yourself as a PhD is just another job, and that's really what you're doing. And it's up to you in terms of the choices that you make in terms of what you want to do. And imagine yourself when you're doing it, you're just kind of an entrepreneur, right? Where you create the thing that you want to create, and everybody has a different definition of what that looks like to them. So you want to have that in your mindset when you're building this thing around you, right? So, and that's the tricky part. That's where you're going to struggle. I guarantee you're going to struggle with that. All right, so you're going to make a lot of money during your PhD or when you have a PhD. In general, no. If you look at sort of consistently across the different domains, you're going to make more money in industry. And the simple fact is that there is just better returns in industry for the efforts that you put into sort of financial returns. And with a PhD, you're doing it for other reasons. You end up substituting. So even in my field, strategy, or even in finance, or, which are, yeah, it definitely like finance, accounting, they do extremely well to most PhDs around the world. So maybe it's some sort of weird law thing that you're doing to a PhD in some sort of weird law thing that is highly lucrative. I don't know. Or, you're doing a PhD in medicine of some sort, right? Even in those particular fields, you can still make more in industry. So why do we actually stay in the particular thing that we're doing? Part of it's probably just nonsense in terms of why we actually do the things that we're doing. And there's probably not a lot of rationality in terms of why that makes sense. But part of it's really cool because I can do things like this that I couldn't have done without, being sort of having a strict 9 to 5. So for me, a big reason is the commute and living in a town that I actually want to live in. Although it's a little fuzzy in terms of your choices, but I just didn't want to do kind of like the working world thing where I lived in some giant city. I would have lived in Toronto, commuted to Mississauga, being Canadian. It's a suburb in Toronto and it's just like a mess, right? So that was a big thing for me. I didn't want to spend an hour and a half in the car each way. And I just wanted to kind of live the life I wanted to live, but, just kind of have, and the other thing is the search and the exploration. You can get a little bit of that goes on in industry. Well, you do get some of it, but you don't get it to the same extent, right? In terms of you're searching for something and exploring something and doing something that's new and novel than what you do in during your PhD. I do see that a lot more. So that's a key thing, right? So there's a struggle component. There's also like the competition component. It's really fun in terms of the competition component and things like that, where you're competing against other people. It's fun, but it's not, right? So you get lots of, negative emotions and things like that. But, in general, it's like a big competition, meritocracy of some sort, right? So you're just kind of pushing forward at the thing that you're doing. So yeah, not necessarily make a lot of money. I did my own financial calculations. You can watch some of my other videos where I talk about this. But, I recently looked at it. It's pretty accurate. So, I'm going to break even compared to just going into engineering. That was my undergrad. I would have made by the time, or my break even is when I'm 58 years old. So I completed my PhD when I was like 30-ish, no, 31, 32, somewhere around, I can't remember. But anyway, somewhere around there. And I'm going to break even when I'm 58. It is what it is. Anyways. All right. So, will you graduate in a 4-year program? Generally, no. I would say so. Any school that says you can do this in like 3 or 4 years, yes, I guarantee you could do this. It's not going to be like crazy in terms of getting the stuff that you need to get done in 3 or 4 years. But there is a problem because you can get out and you don't have anything to offer to the market that people are going to find attractive with you. So the thing that we have to do is produce, papers and research. And it just takes to get to the extent, because it's a competitive market, to get to the extent of what the market is expecting at this moment, because things have ratcheted up over the years, that it does take, 5, 6, 7 years now. So any program that says 3 or 4 years, I would highly discount that in terms of, yes, you can get done. Are you going to get the job that you're going to want to get or that has the reputation? Not necessarily, right? So programs that are at the cusp now, I'm starting to see not only 5 years, but like 6, even 7 years. And that is becoming the norm in terms of graduating. And then sometimes people go and do postdocs, right? They're becoming much more common in terms of getting postdocs. And the reason is it's a competitive market and it's just really tough to get a job at the end of it. So you can get a PhD. If you want to do this, and you want to get out in 3 or 4 years, then aim for kind of like some sort of program that's going to be okay. So it'd be like a professional doctorate where you get through and then you're done in 3 years. It's going to be expensive, but you get done and then you can go work in industry. And that's going to be a nice way to do it. Like a doctorate of education, doctorate of business administration, things like that, that are going to be kind of an executive kind of program, where you can get out, get done, get your thing, and then you're all done. You go into industry and do the stuff that you need to do, or go into administrative roles and you do what you need to do. All right. A doctorate is expensive. Generally, it's pretty inexpensive if you actually look at it, and most of them will pay you to do the research. However, you're going to expect to live for 5 to 7, 8 years, roughly below the poverty level, and that's something that I'm not necessarily proud about, and it's not something I think should be warranted. But you should also look at the different programs. There's huge variance between stipends and how much things you're actually going to get paid, how much the programs are. So really look at that, especially look not only at the institutions. So that's going to be an important thing, right? So University of Pennsylvania versus University of Virginia versus, I don't know, I'm trying to think of schools in HEC in Paris. Looking at those different schools, there's going to be wide variances between them, but then as well in the programs, massive differences between them, right? So and for the most part, a lot of the research is the same. So I wouldn't necessarily discount one program. So I would look at those programs and take them seriously. So if you can get into a law program versus getting into an anthropology program, I'm not sort of pointing out, I'm not sort of suggesting one way or the other, but really look in terms of, how much it's going to cost and how much money you're going to get at the end of it. I'd highly stress that as much as you can, because you don't want to go into a program and realize that there's just, it's not financially viable at the end of it, right? You're going to get paid no matter what through all of those. A really small stipend, the stipends tend to vary a lot. So just check that out. All right, so all doctorates go into academia. In general, no, in my field, in sort of strategy, innovation, yes, that does. Most of them will actually go into academia. But across the board, across universities, across the whole university, whatever, or academia, no, I wouldn't say that at all. I think a lot of them do go into industry, and that's pretty common. And you just have to look and be careful in terms of where you're going and sort of the recommendations that you're going to do. But I would be really upfront if you're doing that in terms of this is my career path, in terms of the people that you're going to work with. If you say that, so just be on, just be well aware. If you do say that I'm going to go into industry, don't expect a lot of people to be, really excited about that, because they want to work with you in terms of working relationship going forward for many years in industry or in academia. So just expect, just kind of be a little bit cagey about it, honestly, in terms of what you want to do with that. But, try to be as upfront as you can with people so that they have set their expectations for you. All right. So, you'll not have time for life. So in general, so you're going to spend a lot of time doing research. I'm not going to hide that in any sort of way and expect you're going to be focused on that. But, looking back, I've had a life, and I try to make that an important thing. I do see that people actually that don't do that and try to focus on having a life outside of academia in whatever way that they're looking at it, they tend to really, it really eats them up in whatever way. And they, it becomes too all-encompassing. So having a life, whatever that is, maybe you like to golf, maybe you like to play hockey, whatever it is, that's going to help you out. And so look at those kind of things. And it's just expected it's going to be a really dynamic career. So imagine that you're the best analogy, I think, is if you became a lawyer, corporate lawyer. Just kind of imagine that kind of lifestyle. So it is going to be really tough, and there's going to be a lot of challenges, but you can have a life with doing things. So just expect that. You're going to know everything once you're done. You're going to realize you know nothing once you're done. And just like me, I realize I really don't know that much. But it's funny though, like when I personally think about the stuff that I think I know I don't know that much. And it's, please repeat it? Aha! Here goes my iPhone. Okay. Anyways, I hit it by accident. So anyways, I know that I know that I don't know that much. But then when you go and talk to other people, particularly people, new PhDs, for example, or undergrads, you really don't. You do know a lot of stuff, and it's kind of fun to see that. You're like, oh crap, I forgot that other people don't know that. And you're going to run into that a lot. So just expect that to happen. You're going to realize that you don't know that much, but then when you go and tell other people, you realize that you kind of do know a little bit more than other people. Not that much, but know a little bit. All right, so those are 10 myths that you should expect about doing your doctorate. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to be part of this whole reciprocity movement. It's amazing that you guys are actually being part of this. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.